The Muslim Brotherhood is an organization that began in the 1920s in Egypt as a religious and social organization. It has over the years metastasized to become the largest global Islamic organization in the world, with branches in dozens of countries. Its stated goals are to spread Islam and the word of the Quran throughout the world, with the ultimate objective being the creation of a global caliphate. While the Muslim Brotherhood has had people in the field around the world for many years, the center of the Muslim Brotherhood was Egypt, where it took political power after the fall of Mubarak. After the Brotherhood fell in a coup, much of its leadership dispersed around the world, greater globalizing their influence. I traveled to Cairo, Beirut, Istanbul, and elsewhere to meet with Brotherhood leaders and to get a better sense of their plans and goals. While the branches of the Brotherhood are geographically and politically diverse, their ideological goals remain constant, and they seem to share a secretive but somewhat cohesive political structure with clearly definable goals.
All the groups that claim belonging to the umbrella of the Muslim Brotherhood share this common ideology.
While the Muslim Brotherhood is dispersed throughout the world, one of its centers of power is here in Turkey. We were able to get an interview with Ashraf Abdel Ghafer, a major Muslim Brotherhood leader based in Istanbul. Does the Brotherhood share an underlying ideology?
Of course. All of us share an underlying ideology which comes from Islam. You have this ideology, you have the group to fulfill the condition of this ideology, which is in Algeria or in Chad or in Berlin or in Malaysia, in Finland, in America, in Russia, in Mozambique, in South Africa, and everywhere is the best for everyone.
We're talking about a group that has as its ultimate goal an Islamic state that dominates the whole world.
The Muslim Brotherhood have aggressively tried to expand their global influence by sending an unknown amount of proxies into countries around the world, with the goal of sowing disorder and to radicalize the Islamic populace in order to achieve their stated goal of global dominance. They have people on the ground in all major European countries that are actively trying to subvert the political system. Dr. Mohammed Akram Adluni is a Muslim Brotherhood leader with whom I have corresponded with by phone, email, and text over 50 times during the past 12 months. He wrote an extremely influential memo that lays out the Brotherhood's goals and strategies, both across the West and in the US specifically. The Ikhwan, Muslim Brotherhood, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within, and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands. Nidal Mohammed Sakr was placed by the Muslim Brotherhood inside the US and has been here for years. Nidal was recruited by Abdullah Azzam, a mentor of Osama bin Laden and a co-founder of Al-Qaeda. He recruited him into a paramilitary cell that conducted terrorist operations against Israel. Nidal was personally acquainted with Osama bin Laden. Nidal now lives in the gorgeous and sun-soaked Huntington Beach, California, in a condo a few blocks from the ocean. He escaped into the US after being sentenced to death by an Egyptian court for allegedly murdering a police officer. He is now free to frolic on the beach and call for the killing of President Trump, as he did in October of 2017.
The way Muslim Brotherhood exists and operates is the following. They do have those general guidelines and approach and school of thought. However, each chapter deals with its own realities and challenges and very specific circumstances. Like, for example, in the US is different than, for example, the UK or France or some other places. So you operate from within, like, the environment that you're in a way that's most fit.
You work from within the system.
From within
to
the
rise
system,
up.
From within the system.
How successful is that approach right now?
It's very, very successful.
Is democracy a good tool to help create and grow Islam around the world?
Why not? Why not?
In 2015, the British government, alarmed at the radical influence of the Muslim Brotherhood, ordered a governmental review of its beliefs, goals, and activities in Great Britain. Its conclusions were alarming. The Muslim Brotherhood has been willing to use violence and terror. They defend suicide bombers and the killing of civilians. The Muslim Brotherhood in the West uses doublespeak, softer language in English, and delivering a radical and violent message in Arabic. They have a significant influence on the largest UK Muslim student and national organizations, ultimately concluding that the Muslim Brotherhood's ideology and tactics are contrary to British values and in conflict with its national interests and security. Of all the nations in which they operate, the Islamic domination of the US is seen by the Muslim Brotherhood as the Holy Grail. Like their expansion into Europe and Asia, the Brotherhood has a very specific agenda for undermining the US political system. They use the same playbook as they have in Europe and elsewhere, sending representatives across the US, which they see as a morally decayed nation and ripe for achieving their goals.
I don't think there is any morals in America. If you say and don't practice, there is no morals.
So is Islam in America the solution to this problem?
In America, what is the problem? Islam is a solution for everywhere. Why? Because there is a standing morals.
Is one of the goals of the Muslim Brotherhood to actually overthrow the United States?
Yeah, definitely.
The US has been a target of the Brotherhood for many years. Many of its members founded some of this country's largest Islamic organizations, including CARE, the Islamic Society of North America, the Muslim Student Association, Students for Justice in Palestine, the Muslim American Society, among many others. While some of these groups deny current involvement with the Muslim Brotherhood, many of the same founders are still involved with these organizations, and they seem to share the same philosophical underpinnings of the Brotherhood. The Muslim American Society, which has 42 chapters in schools across America, recently released this incredibly disturbing video on their Facebook page from one of their schools in Philadelphia. Is there affiliations between the Brotherhood and, let's say, the U.S. Islamic institutions like CARE and the Muslim American Society? Do they work together?
They are carrying the same ideas.
CARE, the American...
Yeah. They're carrying the same ideas.
There are people who are working with the Muslim community to educate them.
There are Muslim organizations that are doing a great job on the ground.
Their core organization still has, in a sense, these ties. And with people from the Muslim Brotherhood. They host official Brotherhood representatives in their conferences that they hold inside the United States. So these guys are Brotherhood. It's very clear that there is a tie.
They have evolved over the years. They definitely gained so much experience and so much work on the ground, and they learned how to build coalitions. I was born here in the U.S. and
You were born in the U.S.?
I was born in the U.S. and
Where's the accent? Southern?
No, I was born Northeast. I was born in Providence.
They matured in the sense of developing the best language to talk to Westerners, especially people on the left, where they frame their problems as one of struggle against imperialism, against Western domination, using terms that are acceptable to the leftist Western mind, basically.
How closely is the Brotherhood working with the leftist and liberal organizations?
They're my backers and they're my defenders in political circles.
So the left really, you have an alliance with the left in the United States?
The left would be natural ally, of course. They were our backers and supporters and actually coalition partners. I mean, now Republican Party actually is basically Heil Hitler kind of party, you know. It's even worse than the Jewish pro-Israeli in some ways.
If you could vote for anybody for president, who would you vote for president?
I can think of one or two, but I don't want to speak for them right now. I don't want to hurt
their chance to get elected.
Their chances of getting elected.
What about like Keith Ellison?
I mean, Keith is good, but I think we're gonna see at least 3, 4, 5, maybe up to 15 people. Kamala Harris is one anyway. I mean, so they're gonna see like at least like 10, 15 people coming up on the scene. They're gonna be actually very, very viable alternatives to the trash that we have right now in Washington, D.C.
The Holy Land Foundation was once the largest Islamic charity in the United States. Its supposed organizational mission was to fund humanitarian programs for Arabs in the Palestinian territories. In reality, it was a front organization for the Muslim Brotherhood to help finance Hamas's terrorist activities. In 2009, the founders of the organization were given sentences of between 15 and 65 years in prison for funneling $12 million to Hamas. Among the unindicted co-conspirators listed by the prosecution was a who's who of major U.S. Islamic leadership, including CARE, the Islamic Society of North America, the North Islamic Trust Fund, and many others. One of the pillar Muslim Brotherhood beliefs is an embrace of violence and terror. They not only advocate for terrorism, but their franchises have engaged in terror around the world. Hamas, one of the world's leading terrorist groups, is a direct offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, with full support from the Brotherhood leadership, and continues to funnel funds to Hamas. Hamas is one of the most prolific terror groups in the world, and is not the only Brotherhood branch of terror. Qassam and Liwa al-Thawra in Egypt, Isla in Yemen, and Hizb al-Watan in Libya are also groups who wield terror as a weapon to promote the Muslim Brotherhood's ideological goals.
How can you call that terrorism? I mean, that's heroism, actually. Heroism.
All the groups that claim belonging to the umbrella of the Muslim Brotherhood share this common ideology.
I have to have a weapon against this weapon in order to kill.
Whenever you have evil, you're supposed to stop that evil. What if you could not stop it, by peaceful means? I mean, what do you do?
I would be hard-pressed to find an organization within the Muslim Brotherhood umbrella organizations that rejects violence.
While the leadership of the Brotherhood are unquestionably radical, I went to the streets of a Muslim Brotherhood stronghold in Cairo to meet with the rank and file and see if they hold similar views. Do you think that America's influence on the world is good or bad?
America is sucking the blood of the world. I know the US is burning mosques. I know that they're trying to convert Muslims to Christianity around the world.
Was Osama bin Laden and the Muslims responsible for 9/11?
Osama bin Laden was made in America.
Works for America.
Osama bin Laden was made in the USA and paid for by the Jews.
Osama
Osama bin Laden is a figment of the American imagination.
So Osama bin Laden isn't real?
Osama bin Laden was not real. I know the Jews are the ones controlling America. The Jews have a certain amount of control throughout the entire world, but America they control completely.
Why do you think the Jews control America?
America's $200 billion debt is owed to the Jews. They are controlling the whole West. The Jews are responsible for all the wars. They plant the seeds for all of the wars.
You like Breaking Bad? You like Game of Thrones? What kind of TV shows are you watching?
I like The Valley of the Jewish Wolves.
I don't know that one. Can I get it on Netflix? As we were filming, a crowd began forming behind us, and there were threats of violence.
There's a tension going on in the rear, and I think we should leave.
President Obama.
I think we should leave.
Nidal Sakar, like most Muslim Brotherhood leaders, attempt, poorly, to sometimes sound moderate, but just keep the camera rolling, and it all comes out.
Muslim Brotherhood, I think it might even outlast the United States as we know it, because it seems that the way the United States is going right now.
Or maybe replace it.
Well, look at it right now. I mean, with this Trump thing and the division that you have in America and people killing each other and, getting on each other's throats and acting like vulgar and barbaric as we see it right now. Whatever the U.S. is doing to the rest of the world, the U.S. is going to face. It's going to face, definitely. What goes around comes around. There's no question about it. It will definitely come back, and when it comes back, it's going to be ugly. A revolution is coming. It's not going to be green. It's not going to be peaceful like Arab Spring. I guarantee you that. It's going to be bloody. Like from my perspective, because I'm a little bit more quote-unquote radical in my approach, if seeking justice, that makes you radical, or being radical is a good thing.
There's a goal.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Let your radical freak flag fly.
God bless radicalism.
What does his problem with America really boil down to?
The American way. Some of us are completely against it, or like the opposite to it. You know what? I would believe somebody like Osama bin Laden 1,000 times over somebody like Trump or FBI or CIA. At least, live your life for a purpose. And if you die for that purpose, then you had a good, meaningful life. You have nothing to regret.
One of the most successful and worrying projects initiated by the Muslim Brotherhood is their radicalization of prison inmates. Then FBI Director Robert Mueller, when speaking to a Senate committee, described the radical Islamist conversion machine operating throughout U.S. prisons. How widespread is the Muslim Brotherhood's influence in the U.S. prison system today?
There's an extensive amount of influence by the Muslim Brotherhood into the prison systems within the United States.
This is Patrick Dunleavy. He's the former Deputy Inspector General of the Criminal Intelligence Unit for the state of New York. He has also worked as a consultant for the FBI.
The U.S. prison system is fertile ground for Islamic radicalization within it by inmates.
And the Muslim Brotherhood's primary vehicle for this radicalization is their near monopoly of choosing imams in U.S. prisons. The Brotherhood-affiliated imams make up the vast majority of Islamic clergy in U.S. jails and prisons.
Over 75% of the chaplains within the U.S. prison system have some sort of sympathetic following towards the Brotherhood. They're preaching a form of Islam that moderate Muslims would call radical.
The Huffington Post reported an estimated 35,000 to 40,000 inmates convert to Islam in prisons each year, and that 15% of the total U.S. prison population are Muslim. The net effect of this radicalization? Islamic inmates have left the prison system and are responsible for dozens of terrorist attacks around the U.S.
The New York State Police Vigilance Project that did a survey of individuals involved in either committing terrorist acts or plotting to commit terrorist acts found that at least 50% of the individuals involved in those had some sort of criminal background or some sort of nexus to the criminal justice system. They're normally individuals that have animosity towards authority. They predominantly have a predisposition of violence. Many of them come from dysfunctional families, and many are looking for some sort of outlet for that violence.
Yet despite this obvious nexus between prisons, terrorism, and the Muslim Brotherhood, very little has been done to stem this deadly association.
The FBI started a program called the Correctional Intelligence Initiative, which was tasked with finding out radical elements within the prison system, monitoring chaplains, also monitoring terrorists that were in prison. To this day, there has never been any report to Congress of the findings of the Correctional Intelligence Program, particularly starting in 2008, 2009, when President Obama came in and his officials in the Department of Justice. They sanitized the documents. They removed Islamic radicalization and substituted countering violent extremists. Well, what's a violent extremist? Just about anybody who's in prison could be a violent extremist.
Would you say that this kind of PC culture we've seen in the last 10 years or so has added to the fact that people are looking the other way as we're seeing radicalization happen in the prison system?
I would say definitely so in the fact that it's become more politically correct to abandon normal police practices of investigation so as not to offend certain groups.
The Muslim Brotherhood would have you think that they are a moderate organization looking out for the spiritual well-being of the Sunni Islamic populace. The reality is much darker. The UAE, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and other countries who are intimately involved with the Muslim Brotherhood have already put the Muslim Brotherhood on their list of terrorist groups. While they are an extraordinarily secret society, they have a political hierarchy that has defined ideological and political goals. Like any large, complex organization, they will sometimes squabble or have differences, but their radical ideological quest of global Islamic supremacy is paramount to their ultimate philosophy